How do you facilitate a change of heart in your kids and not just a change in their behavior? That's an interesting question, because sometimes a change in behavior creates a change in heart. And obviously, sometimes a change in heart takes some while for a change in behavior to work its way out. So what would you say? I know that we always disciplined our boys and talked about the why.
Well, I mean, I'm going to challenge that. I mean, Jesus said, out of the heart comes evil thoughts, adultery, murder. I mean, out of the abundance of the heart, that's where our lifestyle comes from. And But
I would challenge you back that if you have actions of love, the feelings follow.
And that's
actions of hate, the feelings of hate follow.
So it works both ways.
You can start it. Yeah, it can start both ways. Yeah.
But I think what we did is we appealed to our sons on a heart level, which is wisdom level. And we would always say, okay, here's the wisdom behind this. Here's why you don't want to do this. And I think when you continually, rather than just saying, don't do this, if you show the wisdom behind it, because God even gives us wisdom of why we don't do things.
Right.
I think it helps them with the heart change. And I think the other thing that really helped is, hey guys, life is a long, long life. I mean, it's a long time. And you want to do things now that you're not going to regret later. So here's what you want to do now, because if you don't do this now, you're going to have regrets later. And you're going to look back and say, why did I do that?
Right.
And I think we would constantly show them the wisdom of why they didn't want to do what they were doing.
I'm thinking, as I'm holding a lollipop, it made me think about Addison. There was a season where Addison had a ridiculously long habit of lying, where he would just, whenever he got in trouble, he would lie. And he was a horrible liar. I mean, he was obviously
all over his face.
Lying. And I remember we had kind of a rule that lying receive discipline.
Yeah.
And I remember I gave him a lollipop, which I have a lollipop so I don't cough. I gave him a lollipop and he, got it at the bank. He really wanted to hold it. And I said, you can hold it, but you can't eat it because we haven't had lunch. And I'm driving in the car. He's in his car seat. And I hear the wrapper and I'm like, Addison, are you eating the lollipop? He's like, no. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's just kind of making noise with it. And I couldn't really see him. And I get him out the car seat and the lollipop, it's a stick, it's gone. I mean, it's completely gone. I'm like, did you eat the lollipop? Which now, obviously, I realize that was a stupid question. I just said, you ate the lollipop. And he said, no, because he was getting so afraid of the cycle of discipline. And so I sat him on my lap and I said, all right, I'm going to give you mercy here because you ate this lollipop. And
you lied about it.
Yes.
So you disobeyed and you lied.
But I could tell he was more afraid of the discipline than he was learning the lesson. And so I remember when I gave him mercy in that moment about the lollipop, he never lied again until much later, until he was a teen. But yeah, he stopped the pattern of lying. And so I think sometimes when you want a heart change, you have to be spirit-led with your kids with the discipline. It can't just be rule-led, because then if it's just rule-led, you're going to only get change of behavior. But if it's spirit-led, you can get change of heart.
And I want to encourage everyone on this. Jacob was a liar. He was a deceiver. Mm-hmm. And until he had an encounter with God at Bethel. Mm-hmm. And that's when he became Israel, the Prince of God. Mm-hmm. And, prior to Bethel, it was the God of Abraham and Isaac. Mm-hmm. It was the God of my father and grandfather. Mm-hmm. Once he became my God, things changed. And I remember that happened with Addison. Addison was at a certain point at 16 years old. He was in a meeting. I'll never forget the meeting. It was actually like a 4-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And it just so happened I was doing the meeting. He'd been in hundreds of services that I'd done before, but in this one particular meeting, the presence of God fell, and Addison was never, ever the same again. We never had problems with lying after that. Nope. Because why? He encountered God. Now, I will say you and I prayed passionately, constantly, that all our kids would have an encounter with God. Mm-hmm. And when I look back at all of them, I see encounters. I remember Arden's encounter specifically right now, it comes to mind. And when they had those encounters, we saw the change. And I think you can only do so much parenting, but then there has to be that supernatural element of when God and your child have an encounter, when that child no longer sees it as the God of my parents, but now He is my Lord Jesus Christ.
Where they wrestle with God and they get that blessing.